When YNW Melly dropped Murder on My Mind back in 2017, well, his career absolutely exploded, and it left a lot of people asking, is this maybe the most remorseless, unapologetic rapper alive? Now, after all, rapping about leaving blood-riddled crime scenes and grief-stricken families behind in his wake, well, it glamorized murder in a way that, well, even by typical rap standards, it was just like a little out there, a little cray-cray. And what was to come? Well, it would prove that Melly is a man in a league all on his own. So when he was arrested just 2 short years later and charged with double homicide, well, I'm not sure anyone was particularly shocked. Now, what was surprising, however, is the fact that Melly, he wasn't charged with some random murder, but instead he was arrested and charged with the murder of 2 of his closest associates. Now, did YNW Melly really turn on his nearest and dearest? And is there any hope that he's in fact innocent? Well, we'll have those answers to that and more in our latest edition of Where Are They Now?
We go take her now. Shut the fuck before I take you to my trap. Okay. Get your ass 33rd. Matter go line. If your brother run up, that boy gon' get close.
YNW Melly was born Jamal Maurice Demons on May 1st, 1999. Now raised in the often dangerous streets of Gifford, Florida, well, Melly began participating in criminal activity from a very young age. Now it's something that he's never been particularly shy about discussing, especially in his music. In fact, references abound in his lyrics to some pretty crazy things, like say lighting his house on fire when he was a little more than just a kid, to carrying a gun with him to school in the 4th grade. Now he's also admitted to firing a weapon for the first time when he was only around the age of 10.
You know the iCloud lock? I steal the phone, iCloud lock it, sell it to your ass lock. Then you gotta give me the phone back, cause you gonna think I'm gonna unlock it for you. Then I'm gonna drive off.
Now, growing up, Melly, well, he found himself pulled in 2 different directions, the streets and music. Now, as a teenager, he'd risk his life to earn a buck, then he'd spend his free time recording original songs. Now, he began posting those songs to SoundCloud around the time he was about 15 years old. Now, even back then, he was still rapping about the things like violence, crime, sex, and money, and by the time he was 16, well, the guy was incarcerated on weapons charges. So, you know, it wasn't just the music, it was for real. But what did he do to get arrested so young? Well, he reportedly shot a semi-automatic weapon toward a group of students at a rival high school. Now, afterwards, he was charged with 3 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon and 1 count of discharging a firearm in public. Now, it was during this stretch in lockup that Melly, he first began to lay down the groundwork on what would become his hit single, Murder on My Mind. And upon his release, well, Melly, he would co-found the YNW Collective, which consisted of 4 members and friends, YNW Sack Chaser, YNW Borland, and YNW Juvie. Together as Collective, well, they would help shape Melly's very first mixtape, I Am You, followed up closely thereafter by his second, We All Shine. Now this one, it guest starred Kanye West on the single Mixed Personalities. But at the end of 2018, well, it would bring in a twist that no one ever saw coming, and it would change YNW Melly's life forever. On October 26, 2018, well, Melly and 2 friends and fellow crew members, Anthony Williams, aka YNW Sack Chaser, and Christopher Thomas, aka YNW Juvie, well, they were murdered in what was originally reported to be a drive-by. Now, in fact, the report on the attack, it was filed by none other than YNW Borland, who went so far as to claim that he had been in the vehicle when his friends were attacked, but he somehow managed to survive. As for YNW Melly, well, after the news broke, he hopped onto social media that very same day to let the world know how devastated he was at the loss of his brothers. Now, for a short period of time afterwards, well, life continued on as normal. 2018, it turned into 2019, and Melly, he dropped We All Shine in January of that year. Now, 1 month later, however, Melly, he was arrested for marijuana possession. Now, that was the moment of his infamous mugshot that you've all seen the world over. You know, the one where he's smiling like a madman. But then a few weeks later, Melly, he was a free man once more, but that wouldn't last long. On February 13, 2019, well, YNW Borland, he was arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, which was later changed to 2 counts of accessory. The very next day, as rumors began to flood the internet, well, Melly turned himself in in, and it finally became clear that both young men, well, they were being accused of orchestrating the attack that left their friends murdered. Now, after this crazy turn in events, well, Melly's track, Murder on My Mind, well, it would see a massive uptick in streams. In fact, the single, it amassed over 90 million listens in just 2 weeks, on its way to going double platinum as well. Now, all of this was happening while the police, they were making their case that both Borland and Melly, well, they not only been in the car with Sack Chaser and Juvie, but that Melly had been the trigger man himself. He fired the shots from the passenger seat. Upon their incarceration, well, Melly and Borland, they entered a plea of not guilty. Now, a few months later, the state of Florida made it clear that they would be pursuing the death penalty against Melly, and he's been awaiting trial ever since. After spending close to a year in lockup, well, Melly, he would drop his debut studio album, Melly vs. Melvin, in November of 2019. Now, this featured singles like 223's, and it would become his best-selling album to date, peaking as high as number 8 on the Billboard 200. Then, after the pandemic hit, well, Melly, he contracted COVID-19. Now, his lawyers, they tried their best to get him out of prison on a technicality by requesting a medical release, but it was unceremoniously denied. Now, once fellow rappers like Kodak Black got out of prison, well, Melly's people reached out to him as well, and the two, they collaborated on the track Thugged Out just to keep Melly's name fresh in people's minds. Now, in fact, Melly, he would carry on releasing new singles all throughout 2021, collaborating with artists like Hot Boy and Lil TJ. Now, most of these tracks, they would pop up on Melly's second studio album, Just a Matter of Slime, including the Lil Uzi Vert collab, Mind of Melvin. Now, many of Melly's verses from these tracks, they were recorded prior to his incarceration, but it was up to him to reach out to other artists from a phone in prison so he could get them to agree to collaborate.
God is real, and Jesus is real, you know what I'm saying? He has anointed my head with oil, you know what I'm saying? You feel me? He has cleansed my soul, you know what I'm saying? He has blessed me tremendously. The reason y'all love me, the reason everybody loves my music is because of him.
On November 30th, 2021, well, Melly's trial date, it was finally set for March 7th, 2022. And since then, well, further evidence has come to light in the form of a 66-page DNA evidence document that the prosecution has collected against Melly. Now, this document, it reportedly proves that not only were the gunshots fired from where Melly was sitting in the car, but it also contains surveillance footage of Melly entering the vehicle just prior to the attack. Now, with all of this new evidence appearing only weeks before Melly is set to go on trial, well, things are decidedly not looking good. Now, his only real option here is probably to have his legal team request a postponement until they can review all these new materials thoroughly. And while considering the prosecution is still pursuing the death penalty against Melly, well, they better get on that sooner than later. As for what happens next, well, I guess we'll have to wait and see. But if the kid does get the death penalty, that's something we've never seen before. I mean, Suge Knight didn't even get that. And Florida's not the state you want to be messing around in. Anyway, let us know your thoughts on all this in the comments down below. Of course, let us know who you want us to feature next. I'll see you guys in another video.